Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and today we continue our Fantasy Files series with a look at the Carolina Panthers passing game. I'll try to, keep my Sam Darnold slander to a minimum. You can check out our Sam Darnold specific podcast for all that. But hey, we at least have evidence that, Joe Brady and company are able to put together a pretty high scoring unit. And, it's nothing really against Teddy Bridgewater, but let's face it, this was not a good offense last year. 24th in points per game, failed to surpass 31 points in a single contest. I guess when I say Joe Brady put together a good scoring unit, I mean in terms of fantasy, because DJ Moore, Robby Anderson, Curtis Samuel, and friend of the PFF Fantasy Podcast, Mike Davis, all put up at least 1,000 total yards last year. Obviously, that guy, Christian McCaffrey, isn't too bad in his own right. So whether, or not the Panthers are a good real-life offense, we do have direct evidence that at least in 2020, they can be a good fantasy unit. So the two stars of the show were DJ Moore and Robby Anderson. Moore finished with 66 catches, 1,193 yards, 4 scores. Robby had 99 catches, 1,114 yards, and 3 touchdowns, reigning PPR wide receiver 25 and wide receiver 20 respectively. And I guess the biggest kind of takeaway from this crew last year was that Robby was actually the one used as the more well-rounded wide receiver 1. I mean, with the Jets and really, his entire career, we've known he's a field stretching specialist. He can do that and he can do it well. Since 2017, only Tyreek Hill has more touchdowns on passes thrown at least 20 yards downfield than Robby Anderson. It was everything else that we kind of wondered about, and credit to Brady for getting this out of him. Robby set career high marks in PFF receiving grade, receptions, yards, first downs, yards after the catch per reception, and percentage of catchable passes that were caught. I mean, it was pretty shocking from week 1. Like, we just kind of saw how Robby was the one getting these short design stuff. DJ was the one struggling to kind of get the easier completions, because the one thing with DJ, ever since he came out of Maryland, that we've seen, like, this dude is a monster with the ball in his hands. And that was kind of his calling card coming out of college. So to see him not used in that manner was surprising to see. Not that he had any issues, being a legit number 1. My point of saying all this is that both Robby Anderson and DJ Moore have proven capable of doing everything that you want a number 1 wide receiver to do. They are not one-trick ponies. Robby's not just a field stretching specialist. DJ is not just a yak specialist. Both these guys can do it all. So overall, it was Moore and Anderson joining Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, as well as DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, as the only duos with at least 1,000 receiving yards each last season. Again, Anderson is great. We get that. Moore is better, in my opinion. He's still only 24 years old, kind of becoming his generation's Amari Cooper, someone that we can just always reference their age as a reason to not give up on him just yet, even though they haven't quite met their kind of gaudy preseason expectations. We just got to cut him some slack here. And I had an article go up earlier this offseason back in April, just trying to break down the NFL's most unlucky wide receivers. Some of the cool stats we have behind the scenes at PFF can help us, track uncatchable targets, situations that the wide receiver, wasn't their fault. And last year, DJ Moore was one of 6 wide receivers with at least 20 targets deemed uncatchable. If we focus that just on deep balls, just on end zone targets, he was tied with Nelson Aguilar with 6 for the highest mark. And then on deep balls, he was also near the top of the list as well. So I had to give the overall nod to Jerry Jeudy on being the most unlucky guy, but I mean, DJ was right there as well. I mean, just 5 receivers had fewer than 85% of their open targets be considered catchable. Travis Fulgham, Darius Slayton, Jeudy, DJ Moore, N'Keal Harry. That's going to be a sheesh from me, ladies and mostly gentlemen. I mean, DJ, he got open every single time. It was the, maybe not every time, slight exaggeration on my part, but whenever they threw this guy the ball, good things happen. I'm trying to remember, I'm looking it up right now. Like, he had a game at the end of the year, only had 2 catches, or for the longest time, he was being held in check. Okay, it was the Atlanta game. That's right. Atlanta game in week 18. He finishes with 6 targets, 2 catches, 55 yards. He didn't have a catch until like 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They throw him a drag. He stiff arms the hell out of someone going out of bounds. Then Teddy just tossed one up in double coverage, and DJ went up and got it. So I know Steve Smith, incredible player. I think sometimes as an analyst, he's a little harsh on guys. I don't know. I guess he deserves to be. That dude has achieved so much in in his career. When DJ Moore got drafted, Steve Smith was saying, like, this is the second coming of me. I love the pick. But I know in more recent history, he's been more critical of DJ Moore and kind of if he can be that overall wide receiver one. Again, not to try to start a war with Steve Smith. He's the man. Just saying, I do think DJ has proven capable of being a high-end wide receiver one. It's just a matter of getting the right targets and, being in a better overall offense, because that's the problem for both of these wide receivers. I mentioned all the unluckiness for DJ Moore last year. And hey, the good news, Teddy Bridgewater is gone, and he was the guy that was causing all that unluckiness. The bad news is now we have Sam freaking Darnold under center, and people, I just really don't think it's an upgrade. Quickly, Darnold, since entering the league, 44th among 50 qualified quarterbacks in PFF passing grade, tied for 38th in big time throw rate, tied for 40th in turnover-worthy play rate, 40th in yards per attempt, 44th in adjusted completion rate. One of my not favorite things, an annoying thing I would say about my job is every now and then I'll have a tweet go somewhat viral and it kind of makes its way out of fantasy Twitter. And it just gets to these people who don't know who I am, don't know that a lot of stuff I say is tongue in cheek, borderline sarcastic, hell, even a straight up lie from time to time. And I was tweeting about Sam Darnold yesterday, and I said that he should be just fine with the Panthers if he can find a way to get more accurate and efficient while creating more big plays as well as limiting turnovers. And the amount of like earnest replies I got just saying like, well, man, if you kind of apply that to every quarterback in the league, they would be better. I'm like, yes, that's the freaking point. He needs to improve everywhere in order to be better. And stop it with your Ryan Tannehill comparison. Ryan Tannehill was a far better quarterback under Adam Gase and the Dolphins than Darnold ever was. Don't believe me? Here are the numbers. Ryan Tannehill with the Dolphins was 25th in PFF passing grade among 77 qualified quarterbacks, 30th in big time throw rate, 41st turnover-worthy play rate, 34th yards per attempt, 21st adjusted completion rate. Tannehill was objectively an average to maybe below average quarterback when he was with the Dolphins. Sam Darnold has been anybody's idea of a bottom 10 quarterback since the day he stepped into the league. And I think just in terms of overall talent from their own right, I mean, Tannehill was a college wide receiver at Texas A&M to start his career. He transitioned to quarterback. It makes sense for Tannehill to be the guy that kind of comes out, takes a little while to kind of become this pro-ready quarterback. Where's that excuse for Darnold? We can say the same age thing like we do with DJ Moore. I mean, I get it. Sam Darnold is a young guy. He is only 24 years old. Great. Unfortunately, we just haven't seen any shred of evidence that this guy is going to just take this leap forward. I saw the 49ers throw. I saw the Colts throw. Sam Darnold, when he kind of gets out of the pocket and he can play, backyard football, I think it actually is to his advantage. The problem is we just see too many examples of him holding on to the ball so damn long and not trusting his offense. And hey, maybe going to Joe Brady, maybe having these better receivers is going to fix all that. I'm just saying history tells us that if you're this first round QB and your original team says, you know what, we're good, it's not good. Here are the first round QBs that failed to play at least 6 seasons with the team that drafted them since 2010. Josh Rosen, Paxton Lynch, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, Blake Bortles, Johnny Manziel, Teddy Bridgewater, E.J. Manuel, Robert Griffin, Brandon Whedon, Jake Locker, Blaine Gabbert, Christian Ponder, Tim Tebow, and Sam Bradford. Sheesh. I mean, if you look at, Darnold moving forward, I would say his best case scenario is like a more mobile middle-class man, Sam Bradford. Maybe that guy can win football games. Maybe that guy can enable a couple fantasy relevant wide receivers. Please, people, just keep your expectations in line. I truly don't I hope Darnold is great at football. The game is better when we have great quarterbacks all around the league. I want to be able to invest in these options in the passing game more fruitfully in fantasy, but objectively, I just don't see Darnold being good in the year 2021. If he changes it and turns it around, I'm going to have to come back to this podcast and tell you all I was wrong. Based on the evidence I see right now, I just think Sam Darnold objectively sucks at being a professional quarterback, which, hey, there's like 20 to 25 of them in the world that don't suck based on, what the stats we're using relatively. But either way, please stop with the Tannehill comparison. I've had it there. Last point before we get to our PFF Lewis stat. I don't quite see the same sort of, available targets as a reason why we should be getting behind these wide receivers. And it's a good stat. I like using available targets as the reason why we were so high on A.J. Brown before the Julio Jones trade, why, the Lions are a fruitful opportunity. But we see, the Panthers right there at number 4. They joined the Lions, the Jaguars, and the Titans, as the only 4 offenses that have at least 200 available targets. The problem is Christian freaking McCaffrey is coming back to soak up all the underneath stuff. So while we can dream about DJ Moore getting a more yak-friendly workload, soaking up Curtis Samuel's underneath targets, it's going to be Christian McCaffrey that gets that. And unfortunately, there's a real chance that we say DJ and Robby kind of become more of 2A, 2B pass game options as opposed to the 1A, 1B situation they had last year. So takes me to my PFF Lilly stat here. It's a little, this is not the most serious stat I've given you all, but basically I was looking at his, just career stats, and I noticed his yards per carry mark, 11.1. I mean, that's a gaudy number right there. Only 21 career carries, but I took the, minimum threshold, 20 carries, looked at every player in NFL history with at least that many, and looked at the yards per carry mark, fully expecting to see DJ number 1, and I was wrong. He is number 2. Number 1, Mr. Louis Lips from the Steelers back in the 80s. He was a wide receiver, and I guess I got to review the film. They must have had some hell of a, wide receiver reverse stuff in their playbook because, man, for him to have, more than that 11.1 that DJ put up is something. I believe Lips was actually over 13 yards per carry. So Louis Lips, if by some, chance in hell you're listening to this podcast, kudos to you, man. You had yourself a nice little career as a rusher. Hopefully DJ Moore can fix his usage and his quarterback play. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's starting to look like his generation's Andre Johnson, Allen Robinson in terms of a great talent that produces anyway. But man, let's have someone other than, the injured version of Cam Newton or Kyle Allen or Teddy Bridgewater or Sam Darnold throwing this guy the ball. The bad QBs are racking up. And because of that, I have DJ Moore as my wide receiver 26 and Robby as my wide receiver 32 ahead of next season. This means, and this has been the result, I am getting almost no DJ Moore in best ball drafts because he is going as the wide receiver 18. Robby's going as the wide receiver 32. Remember, last year, Robby Anderson was the wide receiver 20 and DJ was the wide receiver 25. I fully agree with anyone that says DJ Moore is a better real life receiver than Robby. I agree with that statement. I think it's true. That's not what we're doing here. We're trying to figure out who's going to be the more productive fantasy asset. We saw was Anderson last year, and now Robby's old quarterback is back. Now, I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you guys that they had great chemistry. I accidentally caused like an uproar on Jets Twitter last year when I posted a cut up of Sam Darnold missing open Robby Anderson downfield. A good minute-long video, like more than one example, believe me. And then Robby actually quote tweeted it, put this, kind of emoji of like the face with the wide smile, not a smile, but almost like the, pretty much a sheesh face if you had to make an emoji out of it. And Jets fans were like, geez, man, like way to throw your quarterback under the bus. I think Robby deleted it or he came back and it was just like, didn't work out, whatever it was. Like, don't kid yourself. Like Sam Darnold and Robby Anderson were never great together. It's a reason why Robby is considered one of many post-Gase breakouts. And I don't think getting Darnold back in the building is helping there. Have we heard some positives from Darnold and OTAs? Sure, but it's one ridiculous thing after another. McCaffrey, talking about how he just has like an aura around him or he's like a brighten up guy, and Robby saying he's more confident this time around. Maybe those things are true, but I'm sorry. I can't just change everything we've seen from Darnold on a football field over the past 3 years because his, teammate tells a media member that he likes, the swagger he's carrying into the locker room. So Robby Anderson is someone I'm fine attacking at that valuation. He's my wide receiver 30. So I have been getting him. And I think, he could even go up a few spots higher. But yeah, I will be taking the Buccaneers, the Rams, the Bengals wide receivers, even Devontae Smith over DJ Moore. Again, trying to predict what will happen, not necessarily what I want to happen. I hope Darnold's great. I hope both DJ and Robby Anderson can emerge as top flight fantasy options, just not so convinced it's going to be the case. Last note would be Terrace Marshall. I think he's fine as a dynasty guy. I just wouldn't have that high of expectations going into this year. Really great notes on him out of our PFF draft guide. Someone that we were actually a lot higher on then. I think the kind of consensus out there. But as we saw, he fell a little bit. There are some, just potential longer-term injury concerns. And the bigger issue for me is like his best case is as a number 4 pass game option in what I fully expect to be a below average passing and scoring offense. And that's best case. I mean, David Moore is there. He could certainly slide in and actually work ahead of Marshall for year one. Some people, Josh Norris, very much respect, does great work at underdog. He thinks Marshall could lead this team in touchdowns. Maybe. But is that going to be more than 5 or 6 touchdowns? I don't know. So Terrace Marshall, someone that in Dynasty, if you want to kind of be ahead of the mass, make him your wide receiver 5 even, I wouldn't disagree with it. Just think in terms of 2021 redraft, it's going to be an uphill battle for him. Hope you enjoyed the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Everyone, if you did, please check out the rest of our podcast network, which covers everything NFL, college, and fantasy football. And also, if you're going to be out there on the best ball streets, I invite you to go to Underdog Fantasy and deposit $10 using promo code PFF. Get a free PFF Edge annual subscription. That's promo code PFF. Draft now at Underdog Fantasy. Last note, everybody, I get some people reaching out to me, just analysts around the industry, and they ask, what I did to get here and just support whatever it is. And hey, you want to ask, then I appreciate it. I'm not someone that likes, I feel kind of braggy. I don't like talk. I just like to do the work. You don't need to talk about doing the work. Just get the thing done. I hated those kids in college that would tell you how long they were in the library. How about the kid that spent 30 minutes studying for a test and got the same grade? Like, that's more efficient. That's more of a reason to brag, in my opinion. But the one thing I would just say is, if you're someone that does host a podcast, like, take notes before it, plan what you're going to say. You don't need to read it word for word, but my goodness, people, a podcast is an open note test. Don't tell me that you're better when you wing it. That's an excuse for being lazy. I don't want to hear that. Even if you just don't want to look at your notes, you should still prepare them, get your mind right, and you're going to be better off doing it. People, I know writing isn't the hip thing to do anymore, but it really forces you to rationalize your thoughts. And I think, a lot of my best tweets, best thoughts, and just kind of best notes on podcasts come from taking 5 minutes before, sometimes more, sometimes less, just to kind of put together a general outline. So again, if you're someone out there that wings and I just offended you, so be it. It's a fantasy football podcast. Don't listen to me. What do I know about anything else? But those are just my 2 cents on the matter. And I've had enough people reach out that I thought I would share that before we get out of here. So thank you as always for tuning in. New PFF Fantasy Files every single day. We'll get some more 10 questions goodness going as the summer goes on as well. So I'm Ian Hartitz. This has been the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. And until next time, take care, everybody.